Test, 1, 2, test.
Okay, great. It's a great day in Kershaw County, the All-America County. Here we are having had earthquakes, and we had the good news today in a budget meeting that sewer millage can be removed. We will vote on that formally later on. People should not get out in front of their headlights on that, but the news is all over the county. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Rory, the new city manager. Sir, would you stand up so people can see you? Welcome, Camden's new city manager, and we'll all need to get to see you. Mary, let it reflect that Mr. Braswell is now here. We have a full team. We are now called to order, and I would ask you all to stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead. Heavenly Father, we adore Thee and come before Your throne seeking Your wisdom, remembering the words in the good book that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. As we remember those words and carry that forward in these councils, may it always be to Your honor and glory, and all this we ask in the name of Your Son, our Savior, Jesus. Let all the people say, Amen.
Amen.
And let's have a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much indeed. With that, we're going to go right into the agenda. It's on the screen with some public hearings. The first one is a public hearing in regards to an ordinance by Kershaw County enacting a special property tax for rehabilitated historic property, otherwise known as the Bailey Bill. I would open that hearing now. Mr. DeBose, has anybody signed up for the Bailey Bill?
Miles Bancroft signed up.
Mr. Bancroft, please, sir. Good to
I'm
see you.
surprised I'm the only one that signed up because I saw today in the paper that this hearing was being held this evening, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to come and present to the council and to those present. My name is Miles Bancroft. I live here in Camden, have been a resident of Kershaw County for the past 5 years, and last year on March 31st, my business partner and I purchased the building at 1050 Broad Street, corner of Broad and DeKalb.
Can you pull the mic to you, please, sir?
I'm sorry?
Can you pull
Yeah,
that
bring the mic over, Miles. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. We got you now.
Thank you.
We, like a lot of people, I think, underwent or began the process of renovating the property at 1050 Broad, not understanding the level of commitment it would take to us, both financially and time-wise. But at the end of the day, we're pleased to be here. We have now about 17 Kershaw County residents who work for us in that office, and we plan to increase that over the remainder of this year and in the years to come. We're grateful for the welcome that we've received. One of the things that we found in the process, we are not developers, we are business people, and when we bought that particular building, the intent was to use it as an office space. And of course, it needed some revitalization, and we had to dig into what that entailed, both financially, getting through various bureaucratic wickets here in the state, city of Camden, and also in the county. One of the things that we learned about at that time was the presence of the Bailey Bill in the state of South Carolina. It's not called that in any of the legislature, I don't believe, but it's referenced that way. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's read it, but I'm sure there's not a lot of people who have read it. And one of the things that I found interesting about the Bailey Bill is that I think up until a few years ago was primarily directed at county government. It was not directed at municipalities. So I was surprised to find that Kershaw County had not adopted the Bailey Bill. City of Camden had, and so we began to work with the city planner there on getting pre-approvals for the various things that we were going to be doing to the building as far as color, windows. We got historic window replacement, doors. It was a pretty heavy investment in getting that done. Sadly, at the end of the day, our attorney, who cost us a lot of money in Columbia, never filed the paperwork with the city of Camden prior to us starting the process, and as a result of that, we were not able to at least to this point, make use of the benefits of the Bailey bill. I would like to, and I've actually planned to come and speak to council on this matter for some time, and I was grateful that to Mr. Kahn and his folks at the paper, I actually saw this morning in the paper as I was reading through it that this hearing was taking place this evening. For those of us who have invested in particularly derelict buildings, historic buildings here in the county, having the county support us is tremendously important. I think it's important from the standpoint of being an encouragement in that process, being, expressing the gratitude that we've received for our work there on what I consider a tremendously important cornerstone building in this city. I know that the interests of this council goes far beyond the city of Camden, but Camden is, in fact, of course, the county seat and the place that many people think of when they think of Kershaw County. I would like to caution the council on several things. One of the things that I read in the process was that city and county government should work together on the Bailey bill, which I think is a good idea. I think that having two ordinances that overlap pretty much would be helpful. The one thing that I would caution is that there is the legislature has given the municipalities and the counties the ability to require a pre-certification of any work that's done on these historic buildings. They've given you the authority to require that. They have not required that themselves. In fact, if you read the bill, if you read the legislation on this, it says that you may do that. And really, that's where we became entrapped with the city of Camden, is because we had met with the city planner, he had gone through the building, he had approved the windows, he had approved all that we were going to do, but when it came to doing the final inspection and he went to the file that our attorney was supposed to have filed was not there, and as such, the process just stopped. So what I would encourage you is that as you consider this, if you get far enough along, and I hope you do, that you would consider having the pre-certification an option. It's going to be up to you, or it's going to be up to whatever representatives you choose to certify after the fact any building that's going to be subject to tax relief afforded by the Bailey bill. I've heard it said in South Carolina that fair only comes in October. I don't know that I've ever heard that anywhere else. I've never liked the word. I think it's kind of a word for 7-year-olds, but I think that I will say it seems somewhat inequitable for individuals or for companies to put their money, a great deal of money, their own capital into a building, and then to be asked by government to pay taxes on the value of the money that they put into that building. The Bailey bill would give, at least for a period of time, some relief from that. And I would stand today asking you to give some serious consideration to what that does for the county. It encourages redevelopment. I know there are a lot of people here that are restoring old buildings. And I actually have, my business partner is in California. He would like to bring more money to Kershaw County. He loves it here. He comes here several times a year. And we'd like to do this again. This would be a tremendous help to any of us, I think, that are restoring these old buildings. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Miles. Appreciate it, and appreciate your investment in the county. With that, Mr. DeBose.
No one else signed up, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good. Let me give it a pleasant moment. And seeing there is no one, I'm going to close the public hearing on what we call the Bailey bill.
I think that lady raised her.
Ma'am, did you want to speak on the Bailey bill? All right. The second public hearing requires that I ask you to recuse yourself and move out for a minute. Russell, we'll bring you back in when the public hearing is over.
I shall recuse myself.
The second, we'll figure out what that word means later. Item number 2 is a public hearing in regards to an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee agreement by and between Kershaw County and the RJR Land Group and its affiliates and assigns to provide a fee in lieu, incentive, and other matters related thereto. So I'll open the hearing. And Mr. DeBose, anybody sign up?
Mr. Chairman, no one signed up.
Okay, well, hopefully Mr. Brazel didn't go very far. With that, I close the public hearing. And can somebody bring Russell back in, please?
He didn't wander off this time.
Okay, good. Thank you, Russell. Appreciate your sense of humor there. With that, I'm going to take Chairman's prerogative. We have public comments and an agenda and a few other items, but we have a very important family here from Ephesus Church and Unity Methodist Church out on Fort Jackson Road, which has a wonderful history going back to post-Civil War, and moreover, has some distinguished graduates of that wonderful congregation, among which is the world-famous Brook Benton, who had gold and platinum records and is buried there. And last weekend, the sheriff and I attended the dedication, and the sheriff said, you know, Julian, we need to show special recognition to that wonderful congregation and that family. So with that, Mary, do you have the proclamation over there? You can pass it. Can you pass it over here? And I'm going to ask that we move straight to a proclamation honoring Brook Benton. It's on page 4 in your electronic books, tab A. And I'm going to read it and then take a motion. And I think we have the family back in the back room, back in the back, so it'll be great. So here we go. A proclamation honoring Ephesus Church and Brook Benton. Whereas the family of Brook Benton, brothers and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, has dedicated a marker to the great history of Ephesus Church in Lugoff on 30 April 2022, and has asked Kershaw County to accept the marker as a gift. Whereas Ephesus United Methodist Church, formerly organized in 1869 when freed African Americans built a small frame church at that location. And whereas tradition holds that the landowner, Carolyn Perkins, permitted members to worship there by the banks of what's known as Bucks Creek beginning in 1866, and whereas the congregation took ownership of the property in 1898 when they acquired 1 acre of the surrounding land, with its first settled pastor being Reverend James W. Brown. And whereas the church maintained a one-room schoolhouse for many years for the education of adults and children, and whereas the church members have contributed greatly to this community, to include the merger in 1998 with United Methodist Church on Fort Jackson Road, and the most accomplished parishioner of whom was the singer Brook Benton, the years 1931 to 1988, born as Benjamin Franklin P., buried on the Ephesus grounds, and singer noted nationally for gospel albums and popular tunes such as Rainy Night in Georgia. It's just a matter of time and endlessly, and therefore be it resolved that Kershaw County accepts this wonderful historical marker as a gift to all the peoples of Kershaw County, in perpetual memory of the work and lives and worship of the people of Ephesus Church, and in recognition of its many parishioners whose contributions touch so many in the county and state, and indeed this very nation. And be it further resolved to thank the family of Brook Benton, especially Brooke Grant and his children, Nigel and Brooklyn, who led the effort along with Dr. Bobby Donaldson and Superintendent T. Gatson. I hope I got them all, but it was a wonderful thing, right, Sheriff? With that, let's take a motion to approve. Can I have such a motion?
Make a motion to approve the proclamation, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Tucker, Mr. Jones, it's in your district, sir.
Second.
Second from Mr. Jones. Discussion. Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and my colleagues. Just want to say we appreciate all that the Benton family and relatives, I'm sitting back there looking at Mr. Brook there, know quite a few of these folks, and they have been just pillars of the community and setting standards and getting things done in the community and in the county. And I want to ask and say that you continue to do that, continue to raise your kids that way, and you're on the right walk with Christ. Thank you so very much.
Other comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir, Mr. Jones.
I'd just like to extend my congratulations to the family. I know they're very proud. We are in Kershaw County proud. One of my favorite songs, I'm a musician as well, nowhere near as good as him. I'm a singer as well, but my wife doesn't think so. But I loved his music. I loved what he stood for. And I'm honored to second this tonight. Thank you.
Other comments? Yeah, David?
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Digress.
Just want to echo the words of Mr. Jones and also Mr. Tucker. Thank you to the family for your contribution, and what a rich legacy, not just the family, but the church has been a part of this community. And as you were reading this, Mr. Chair, I was thinking about how Kershaw County is known for its history and for its contributions, not only to the state, but to the nation. And this is just one example how Kershaw County continues to give back. And even to drill down a little bit further, just the rich African-American contribution that we have here in Kershaw County to not only our community, but to the history of our nation and to the history of music. So I just want to say congratulations, and I'm honored to be a part of this. Thank you.
Other comments? I'll just say it was a delight, and the sheriff will join me. 2 hours in the hot sun passed like 5 minutes listening to that music. Brook, you gave a great speech, but you sing better than you speak. And
Is that a compliment?
Nigel and Brook and all the people of Brooklyn, they were just wonderful voices, praising God and just celebrating life out there of Kershaw County and the greater Lugoff area. It was just wonderful. With that, we're going to move to a vote, and then I want to see if the family wants to say a few things. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And Mary, it's unanimous. Brooke, would any of your family like to speak or what? Brooke is never shy. Sorry.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege. You know, we found out a lot about our history that we didn't even know about it.
Yeah,
As a
bring
matter
the
of
microphone closer. There are about 600 people watching.
As a matter of fact, the history goes back, if you read there, 1957, they were practicing and praising at that creek. It's a wonderful thing to be a part of it, and we're honored that Kershaw County accepted this gift. And you know, this county is all of us.
Right.
Everybody's got a history. Some of my folks can go back to the 1700s.
Oh.
So we all should be honored by this because everybody makes up Kershaw County. Thank you guys so much.
Amen.
Amen.
Well said. Thank you.
Well said.
Well said. With that, why don't you bring the family up, and maybe Martin Kahn will put you on the front page.
No pressure, Martin.
No pressure, Martin. Sheriff, would you join us? Because it was a great recommendation. Would you join us up here, Sheriff? Please.
One, two, three. Thanks, sir.
Probably couldn't afford him. He is good.
Thank you very much indeed for allowing us to move that up in the agenda. We move now to public comments, which is up on the board. Public comments are an important part of this operation. It's an opportunity for members of the public to share information, not a time to debate or with question and answers from council. It's a time for council to receive input, and it's not a time for council response. In short, during public comments, council will listen but not comment. Offensive and inappropriate comments will not be tolerated, and comments should be limited to statements and rhetorical questions. If a group should like to speak to the council, we request that a spokesperson be selected and that person indicate the group that he or she is representing on the sign-up sheet. Number 4, public comment is a time to discuss issues, not individuals, and other avenues exist for individual personnel complaints. Public comments period is limited to 30 minutes with 5 minutes maximum allowed to each individual speaker. So, Mr. DeBose, we got anybody signed up?
Mr. Chairman, two people signed up. The first person signed up is Mark Root.
Mr. Root, thank you.
What I've found in judicial history about this space and these proceedings is that the public comment portion of the meeting makes this area a limited public forum. When the government opens a public forum, it is generally subject to the same free speech standards as a traditional public forum. As a limited public forum, you can restrict access to certain speakers and topics, but these restrictions must be reasonable and content neutral. And even those restrictions face a high constitutional hurdle and are subject to strict scrutiny, the highest form of judicial review. Neither counsel nor the chairman can make restrictions based on feelings, which we have repeatedly done. These are called content-based restrictions and have been proven in many courts to clearly violate the First Amendment. You keep claiming that I'm violating the rules for public comment. Can you direct us to these so-called rules? All I've been able to find are the guidelines for public comment. You even have them attached to the agenda. I bring this up because there are very distinct differences in the definitions of these words. Per the lawdictionary.org, the relevant definition of rule is, quote, an established standard guide or regulation, a principle or regulation set up by authority, prescribing or directing action or forbearance, end quote. And the definition of guideline is, quote, a practice that allows leeway in its interpretation, end quote. On the same page that lists your guidelines, the Kershaw County values are identified. That values statement, in case you haven't read it lately, is, quote, in meeting the needs of the citizens of Kershaw County, council will be guided by the values of honesty, transparency, courageous leadership, civility, respect, and understanding issues and concerns through active listening, end quote. I bring all this up because the basic interpretation is that your guidelines are unenforceable, and we the people can address any one of you individually as much as we want to under the constitutionally guaranteed right to free speech. Having said that, I've had discussions with lawyers, and they recommend that any comments be restricted to topics that the public has the right to be informed about, such as if any individual council members are violating any of the defined county council values. So, while I could legally call you all sorts of vulgar names during my allotted time in the public comments, I'll refrain. I want to ensure you that the definitions I gave above are not paraphrased. I can provide you the links if you'd like, but I think it might be prudent that Mr. DeBose do some legal refresher courses before just kissing Julian's ring and saying that Julian has carte blanche in chairing these meetings. Sure, Julian is supposed to maintain order during these meetings, yet he's the one being disrespectful and causing disorder by not allowing me to speak. Go back and watch the videos where I've spoken at council meetings. I did not raise my voice or become belligerent until you began to violate my rights as a concerned citizen by talking over me and trying to shut me down. Julian's supposed to maintain order, but when he interrupts his citizens' free speech, he is, in fact, the one responsible for causing disorder. Now, I'm going to address council members' violations of the stated county council values, because this is absolutely relevant information that the citizens have a legal right to hear. Since there's at least one example of a violation for each of the values, I'm going to go ahead and start with the first stated value, honesty. At the April 26th meeting, I asked Julian if he were lying about seeking me out at a local restaurant to make himself look good while making me look bad. I did not call him a liar. I asked if he was lying. Rather than a simple yes or no question, or not responding at all due to the guidelines, he immediately told the deputies to escort me out before I'd even finished the question. Since that is a question directly related to how the council chairman is upholding the council's stated values, the citizens of Kershaw County have a need, not just a right, to know. So, Julian Burns, current Kershaw County Council Chairman, has violated the honesty value.
Mark, we don't call out people here, as we told you before. So
You're apparently not listening, Julian.
please, sir, you understand what I said. Is we don't call out individuals. We talk about policy issues. But here
and
you
weren't
are.
listening when I said legal reference says you cannot enforce
We're about to go into recess again, Mr. Root.
I'll keep talking whether you're here or not.
All right. Can you just make that
Next,
change,
I'll move
please?
to transparency. I'm glad to see you haven't done many executive sessions in the last few meetings, but you have collectively approved meeting minutes that do not contain the relevant portions of mine or others' public comments. That is a violation of transparency value, as some people may only be able to read the minutes rather than spending unavailable hours watching a YouTube video or attending every meeting in person. Now, for courageous leadership, I don't know where to start. You're cowards. When someone questions you about your actions as an elected official, you slam the gavel so they can't speak, or you have them escorted out by deputies. Julian, you've already gavelled me. Tom, you're a coward because you stated
All right,
in
that's
plain
it.
English
That's it.
in your closing report
I
of the
declare
April 26th
recess.
meeting
Turn off
that
the
you,
mics.
quote, would rather end public comment.
All right, let's bring the mics back up. Public comments, Mr. DeBose.
A second person signed up is Grace, Missouri.
Grace, please, ma'am. Thank you.
Hi, I would like to say,
Bring the mic directly in front so we can hear you. Thank you.
hi. I would like to say I'm going to start on a lighter note here. I own property at 215 Wheeler Road in Camden. It's in the rural area, right off of 34 highway. I recently moved back to South Carolina, to Camden, South Carolina, about 4 years ago. And I moved in my mom's house, which is on 215 Wheeler Road. The road is 1.1 mile of the road is still dirt, and the other portion of the road is paved. During my time living at my mom's house, it's been very hard to go down the dirt road, which is a shorter way from coming from my mom's house and coming to Camden and going back. But it has did a lot of wear and tear on tires, and the pollution of the dirt and dust and stuff. I would like for the council to consider paving that 1.1 part of the road. I know that things had conspired when I was younger. I believe that road was dirt for probably about 30 years now. I was a young girl when it happened, and my mom and other residents on that road was, coming to the council meetings and stuff. But now that they're no longer here, I'm not seeing a whole lot of action from people. I'm not sure whether or not you have maybe gotten some other responses from the residents that live there. But I would like to stand up because now I am part ownership of that property. The property is being considered for renovation and to upprove the value of it. And I see that more houses, more land clearing has started. So I'm sure that there's going to be more residents on this road. As of now, I am counting about 30 residents now, are property owners on that road. So I would like you guys to consider, having the rest of that road paved. I know that Michael Davis is a resident at the end of the road, and it has been told to me that that was one of the reasons why it didn't get paved in the first place. I'm not sure where Michael stands on it, Mr. Davis stand on this issue, but I am eager to find out. And so I would like for you guys to consider having that part paved. Now I live in Cassett, South Carolina, And I have a lot of family that's still living on dirt roads out there. I know that there's a lot of dirt roads there. And over 20-something families live on one particular road out there. And so I would like to just kind of become a little advocate for that, if you guys don't mind, because with gas prices and the cost of inflation is going sky high, we want to reserve our cars a little bit more than I guess we considered in the past. I do have another issue, which is the Black Heritage building down there. 3 years ago, when I came back to South Carolina, I wanted to volunteer there, and I wasn't given sufficient information on who was either over the building or to volunteer. I would like to share my expertise. I think I came at a great time to bring this out because of Brook, Benton. And I do have a Facebook group that is called Black Inventors and Their Inventions. I've had this group for a couple of years now, and it's up to 1,700 people now and growing. So I would like to share my expertise in that area also because I love Black history. I believe that I can bring some beautiful things to the history town because the town is a history town.
Mr.
And-
Chairman, let me cut you off, Ms. Missouri. Can you get her to wrap it up 5 minutes?
Yeah, I was getting ready to do
Yeah,
that,
okay.
Sammy. Go ahead.
Okay. And I would like to volunteer there and become even a part of it, if possible.
Thank you. And we have your address and everything, correct?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. DeBose.
That concludes the sign-up
And
list.
that concludes public comments. We move now to
Mr.
adoption.
Chairman,
Yeah.
could you instruct the administrator to contact her about a road? Because
Yes.
we don't pave
Yeah,
roads.
absolutely.
The state does.
Absolutely, Jimmy. Thank you. We move now to adoption of the agenda. The agenda's on the board. Can we have a motion to approve? We'll be making some amendments shortly.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as submitted.
A second after Mr. Tucker.
Second.
Mr. Gardner, I believe you have some amendments. Is that Mr. DeBose or Mr. Carpenter?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we would like to request that the third reading of the ordinance authorizing the execution delivery of a fee in lieu agreement between Kershaw County and RJR Land Group be removed at the request of the company.
All right, very good. Are there any other amendments? Or that's it? That's item number one. Can we have a motion to remove that item?
Make a motion that we remove the item for.
Yeah, and a second?
Second.
Second, does Mr. Brazel have to leave the room again, or are we okay?
I think if he recuses himself
Yeah, if you're sufficient with that. Any discussion on that?
and abstains, don't vote.
Okay, very good. No discussion. We move to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And it's unanimous with Mr. Brazel being recused or abstaining. All right? So thank you. That item is amended. And can we now have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tucker, a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Gardner. Discussion? Okay, very good. We move to a vote. All those in favor to include. Now you, Russell, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. And Mr. Brazel, you are going to remain out. Okay, abstaining again. It's unanimous, Mary, with Mr. Brazel abstaining. We move now to approval of let's see, no, we have a public presentation by the sheriff. Mr. Sheriff Lebone, please, sir.
Not sure exactly what I'm looking for here, but just looking for a little help in any way we can get it. Starting to see an increase in calls at one location in our county, and not to be picking on this one location. I know they're trying their hardest, but we really have no tools when a location within our county starts getting out of hand. So I wanted to point a few things out to you if I could. This establishment started as the name Club Salsa, In 2020, we had, you'll see February 6th, stolen handgun, November 28th, assault, December 13th, public drunk, 12/20, drug violation. Not major stuff until we get to 12/27, where we had a shooting incident where we're estimating 3 victims. We don't know because people left in a big hurry and somebody could have been taken to another hospital. We believe a lot of these people are not from our county that are attending some of these parties. See, on the night of this incident here, you can clearly see that some of the signage here, they're not getting alcohol license, which is something we do have a little say over, but they're not getting them. They're basically charging a flat fee to get inside and then giving away alcohol. That's kind of the plan. 2021, we have no reports. I think they had to do with the shooting we had at the end of the year in 2020. Then Centerpoint started back up. Centerpoint 360 started up in 2022, and as you can see, some of the advertisements that's going on here, it's a strip club. It's definitely a strip club, and still alcohol, fights. To the next one here, you look at some of the incidents we've had so far this year. January 31st, we had an assault, not a big issue there, and April 3rd, we had a few auto break-ins where some guns were stolen out of the parking lot, and we ended up with at least 16 shots fired in the parking lot, 4 different caliber handguns. So we know at least 4 people were shooting in the parking lot due to the shell casings. Fortunately, nobody was shot. Looking at May 1st, we had an assault on a deputy. This is what's really disturbing here actually, it was the early morning of May 1st. The party started the night before. I'd got information from 2 different gang units from our state that we had a person coming to the show that we didn't really want in our county. Brings a lot of problems with them. It happens to be the same one that was involved the night where we had the shooting back in 2020. Next one here. You see this here on April 3rd, where you see where we had the road blocked off where all the shell casings were at, and one of the cars that was broke into. Here's the advertisements from the main event there. Actually, it was April 30th. You can see it was just May 1st is when everything took place. We knew it was coming. We really had no time to prepare, try to convince them not to have the event here. The only choice we had was to try to have a lot of participation in the event. So we chose to park across the road and kind of show that we were there and, we're here to protect the community and take care of things. This is probably 10 deputies tied up. As you know, we don't have 10 deputies on a shift. It's a lot of resources we're tying up. For whatever reason, the main event decided not to show up that night. He canceled it last minute, and
Them blue lights.
things went pretty well. Inside the parking lot, they were triple and quadruple parked. I don't know how they could have fit another car in that parking lot, much less person inside of the building. There's no doubt they went far beyond whatever any fire codes would allow inside that building. That's where we get the understanding that our fire marshal doesn't have the authority to enforce certain laws that other counties are dealing with. That's why we're dealing with a lot of people from other counties that has been run off from those counties by tools they do have, and they're coming to our county. Next slide here is this is some video. We cut the sound out because you don't need to hear all the language in here. This is the bar's getting out. You can pause it a second, Danny. The bar's getting out because the main event council, and this was about 3 o'clock in the morning when this took place. They were planning on going to 4:30, but because the main event didn't show up, everybody started leaving all at one time. There was some screams. A few people said that somebody had a gun or something, so they kind of run it out. And this one gentleman, everybody was pointing at that they were accusing of assaulting a female, which we did see a female that looked like she'd been punched in the mouth. We're trying to get that worked out. Somehow she left before we can get her. But as this gentleman's coming out, one of our deputies approach him, basically saying, "Hey, calm down," and seeing the video what took place. He punched our deputy in the nose. And we don't get paid for that. Of course, he went to jail. they went to jail. But incidents like that's what it's going to bring. Now, the staff out there, they'll hire 10 to 15 security guards, private security guards, and you'll see some of the crowd wanting to step in and get involved and have their input. But that's why I really don't want to have our shift to send 1 or 2 guys to handle a situation when it gets that crowded and things start getting out of hand. That's a definite officer safety issue as well as a public safety issue. Again, I think that kind of sums it up. You can stop it there, Danny. That's kind of what we're dealing with up there. Not picking on this place, but this place we have had problems with that we haven't had anywhere else. This is kind of a unique animal, and I don't know what kind of tools we got available to us, but I know that we do have some type of a code with, you know, the dancers and everything not being able to be that close to the road or something, but it's just not something that can be enforced by any code people, and our fire marshal doesn't have the authority to go in. From talking to the security guards in the parking lot that work a lot of these events over in Columbia, they say one of their best tools is the fire marshal. He keeps the crowd down from inside, and he has the authority to go inside and shut the place down if they're not going by the fire codes. And
Jenkins do a good job with that, don't he?
Yeah.
what's that?
Jenkins does a good job with that.
And that's who I talked with. And he knew the rules of that. He says if we ever got ready to go forward with it, he's more than willing to help us out and give us whatever schooling we need on handling those things. Fire marshals can go in and do inspections. They can take law enforcement with them for protection. You know, this is a private club. We got our hands tied on a lot of areas other than waiting in the parking lot. And I don't think the taxpayers should be paying 10, 15 deputies overtime to work security for events when they choose to have them.
Yeah.
What I'm asking council, if we can do what we need to do to get the fire marshal the authority they need to enforce their codes, as well as, I don't know if we want to maybe start looking into some business license or some type of a nuisance ordinance on businesses. But I can use some tools now. You know, blowing up my overtime budget, it's not a long-term tool.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Can you take some questions, Sheriff?
Absolutely.
Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and my colleagues. Sheriff, you and I have had several conversations on this matter as it has been escalating. My one question is, you say they have security guards that they hire. Has anyone checked their paperwork? Because they should be certified through SLED if they're a legit security company.
Yeah, they are. They have their license cards whenever there, and that was checked. And out of the shooting, actually, one of them got shot when they had the shooting a couple of years back.
Now, are they licensed to carry, or are they just security
4 of them
guards?
were this past event.
Right. And they're keeping their identification on them because that's a state requirement.
Yes, and they usually keep their armed ones outside, and they're wanting people as they go in. But as we know from the event a couple of years ago, they were wanting that event, and people still got in with guns. And we also know that when they come out in the parking lot, like you just seen, that incident took place in the parking lot. That's where the guns are in their cars. If they keep them from going inside with them, the chances are they're in the cars.
Well, I would say this right here. I'm sick and tired just by conversating and watching that video. And Mr. Bose and Mr. Carpenter, anything that we can sit down and have conversation on and brainstorm to bring back to this council to make sure that this is not Kershaw County, and our citizens do not deserve this. And there's a church right up the road, actually, where a lot of my relatives are buried. Because
And
my
a school.
dad's born and raised in Cassidy. Yeah, and a school as well. Yeah, North Central's right there. I mean, you just go right up the road, you can walk to it. But we as citizens of Kershaw County and just good people don't deserve this type of mess that's coming into the county. And this was not generated from inside source, as you said. This came outside the county where they thought they could find the donut holes in the rules and the laws. And I'm anxious to kick them out just as fast as they came in here.
Yeah, I've got an email where scanned copies of all the incident reports are sent out to council, and basically you can look through there. Very few people from our counties. A lot of people from counties around us that are coming here, and I, kind of getting the feeling that they feel like they can get away with a little more in our county, and that's.
My last
not a
question
road.
to you is the owner, because this is an owner's choice. He can shut it down tomorrow, he or she. Are they cooperating with us?
Yeah, we've made contact with the owner, basically let them know what was going on there, and we've had cooperation with them in the past, but it's just that
About the Benjamins.
most of these
I'll
events,
say it.
most of the events will happen at the last minute. I mean, it'll be something that they can put it out, and, whatever networks they're using, they get the word out pretty quick. And I'm talking like within a few days, they can put together something like this, and we don't have planning time for it. We got guys that are off on vacation, different shifts, and I have to arrange it. This night here, we had to pretty much bring our SRT team out and everybody we had on call just to make sure we had enough people to prevent any of our citizens around them from getting hurt.
Well, we thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Jones.
Hey, Sheriff, thank you for all you do. Just a quick question. As a former law enforcement officer and have a second-generation law enforcement in my family, what is it that you're asking us for that you don't have now to go ahead and do your job?
Well, a lot of the citizens.
Because, we've had clubs before in years past, and I have worked them before as well. So I guess I'm just asking you, with great respect, what are you asking us to do that you can't do?
Yeah, well, we're going to have to increase my overtime budget. If we're going to have 10 or 15 deputies out there every time an event takes place for officer safety as well as community safety. Other counties have ordinances. I know Richland County has one. Some of our citizens will come to me and, well, why can't you just lock the place down like another sheriff does in another county? And I'm like, well, I don't have that tool here. I can't do it. I mean, what you're seeing here is the only way we can deal with a problem like this. And this is going to be an ongoing problem that's going to increase with size. And now if we can get the fire marshal involved, at least that can keep down the count at one of these parties, so it's a little more controllable.
Has the fire marshal been involved?
We've contacted the fire marshal, but they don't, there's something they're telling me, and I don't know all the fire marshal rules, but there's something that a chapter 1 or something that that council has to approve, giving them the authority to do what other counties are doing.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes, sir.
since you started with the conversation, I'd like to just ask the county attorney to look into this and get with the sheriff and see what is and what is not.
Well, I think they've got a great resource over there with Chief Jenkins to look into things, and we
Well,
can.
my question is, why hasn't the fire marshal already been involved if he was
Well,
asked?
Well, this is the first time this has come before us.
I've never heard of it before. It's the first time
Yeah,
I've ever heard
That's
of
what I'm saying. I think the sheriff has really been trying to do the best he can in-house, but as he stated earlier, it has continued to escalate. Everything he's done has not even neutralized him. It's study escalating, and so he needs more tools to work with so we
it.
can.
Okay,
we can
but my
set-
question goes back, you still haven't answered. Why hasn't the fire marshal been involved yet if there's a violation of fire code
Well,
there?
I don't know when he had conversation with Chief Jenkins to know that was a tool that we can use, Councilman Jones, is what I'm telling you.
And listen, I'm just asking.
No,
I'm just
what
trying to get
what I'm saying
clarification
is,
in my head.
I don't know when they had their conversation, so I can't give you a timeline. But what I can tell you, I know he's been constantly working on this, and this is, I didn't even know he talked
He
to the
who?
chief today, the sheriff.
Okay.
I didn't even know he talked to Chief Jenkins until he mentioned it today, because we had not had that conversation.
When did y'all have that conversation, Sheriff?
This was after this event. I was talking to some of the security guys in the
recent.
parking lot.
Well, how recent? When did this
This
happen?
was May 1st.
May 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, I was talking to them in the parking lot, asking them how things are done in these other places, and that's what they told me. They said fire marshal has the most pull when it comes to controlling some of these nightclubs from getting overcrowded and out of control, because it's a definite fire issue.
So my question then is, the fire marshal, does he have it on a date to go out there and inspect and do what he has the authority to do?
Yeah, I don't think they have the authority to it. That's what I'm being told,
I
is
got
that
it.
they don't have the authority to do what Columbia
I'm sorry,
does.
then I'm misunderstanding. I thought the fire marshal did have the authority.
No.
They
No,
do in
that's-
other
that was the
areas,
issue
but
I
not here.
found out from this incident here, looking at.
And Councilman Jones, let me say this too, if I can interject this. I don't want this to all be on the fire marshal. We need to put something in place too where they can enforce, arrest, do whatever they need to do, because that is not something that we want. And if some of y'all do, please enlighten me when we get off this dais that, you frequent those clubs. But,
Mr. Tucker,
yes, sir.
because I ask questions doesn't mean I support something.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
And I think that's what I felt like you were insinuating to me.
No.
I'm just asking questions as to the resources we have now. Have they been exhausted?
No, and what
I
I'm
don't condone
stating,
anything like this.
no, what I'm
I
stating
used
is
to
I don't
bounce
think
in
it's,
clubs like that to keep them clean because I
it's
was
not
pretty tough
one
at
person
time.
or one entity's problem. We need to fix it where we all
Yes, sir.
can work together
And
to
understand,
combat this.
because I ask questions about the fire marshal does not mean that I'm against or I'm trying to accuse them
Who
of not
said
doing their
that?
job. I know, but I just feel like bottom line is, have our resources been used that we have on hand now?
Yeah, that's what we used that night.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to let the county attorney and the county administrator get together and get back with us.
I have no problem with that.
I'm all in support of helping folks and making sure that no one gets hurt. No question about that.
Yeah. Now, to Mr. Jones and Mr. Tucker's point, what I seem to be suggesting, it was very helpful, is take a look at what the best practices are in adjoining counties or other counties that we are not doing that might be applied to this situation. Is that where you're taking us, Sheriff?
Yeah, that's one of the,
Okay, so that's in law enforcement, that's in code enforcement, that's in fire enforcement. So if we can have a decent interval between this problem being identified and y'all bringing back in some ideas about how we can help our sheriff not have to face a situation like that. I do remember that Sheriff Matthews had M16s being fired in there back maybe about 8 years ago, and that was really quite exciting. So we need to take a look at that. And there were some instances within the city of Camden where they have closed places down too. So it might be useful to understand what our authority is. The third thing I heard was business licenses, and maybe we look at that too.
We don't have.
We don't have them as a county. Haven't had them since 1791. So maybe we look at that too. You were there.
I was Liberty.
But so what I'm looking for is with the spirit and the passions you've arose here, Sheriff, we need to get back to you and give you better tools to do your job. Thank you, sir. Anything further, Sheriff?
no, that's it.
That was a great presentation. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. With that, we move to,
Chairman.
yeah.
Just to stay on that, though, if I can ask a question. But Mr. Administrator, we don't have business license, but we do have use permits. Is that correct? Don't people have to get a use permit when they open a business or?
A special use permit, but this would just be a special use.
This is just a vacant building that pops up parties every now and then.
Well, I think they
That's the donut hole.
have
Yeah.
I think it's probably zoning property. I haven't looked into it.
Yeah.
But you have zoning laws.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Let's say
Yeah,
one thing.
Tom, go ahead.
We looked at business license at one time several years ago, and based on state law, that has to be by percentage of sales. I believe we found that out, did we not?
At that time, Mr. Gardner, the state has recently changed that aspect to coming with the standardized rate structure across the state. Municipalities and counties must follow the same structure. So a business anywhere is going to pay the same rate regardless of where they're located. But what that does is when we looked at it, we also discussed having it as a very nominal fee, if any fee. That changes, so we can't do that anymore. We would have to follow the state structure for the amount of money we charge per license.
Yeah. Very good. All right. With that, we move to the next item, which is approval of minutes, April 26, 2022, a regularly scheduled meeting. It's at tab B, page 5. Can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Gardner, a second.
Second.
Mr. Tucker, any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Seeing there is none, we move to a vote. All those in favor signify. And it's unanimous. We move to the next item, which is May 3rd, which was a special call meeting for a new administrator. It's at tab C, page 9. It's on the board. Can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Gardner, a second?
Second.
Second, very good. And any discussion? Nope, there is none. We'll move on to a vote. All those in favor signify. And it's unanimous. And we move now to a resolution providing financing terms for equipment lease. It's at tab D, page 10, and it's on the screen. Vic, can you introduce the topic?
Mr. Chairman, members of council, as part of the 21-22 budget that was approved in June of 21, the county proposed to enter into a lease purchase agreement for the purchase of equipment. This is a normal part of our budget process. We have in front of you tonight the terms that we have received, with the low bid being received by Truist Bank for a rate of 2.37%. I present that to you tonight and request council's approval.
Can we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
A second after Mr. Gardner?
Second.
From Mr. Tucker, any discussion? Any further discussion from you, Vic, or this is routine?
It's routine.
Yep, all right.
I do have
Yeah,
one question.
Mr. Tucker.
I was looking, sorry, I'm doing something I have no business doing. But I'm trying to answer somebody. I saw some of these were 2020s, are they slightly used, or are they just for vehicles that were held over, or?
These are going to be, well, first of all, getting brand-new equipment is difficult because of the lead time and the lack of certain aspects of equipment. This is heavy equipment, so you're noticing landfill compactors, ambulances. These are things we started the process of getting. We've received them. They're in service even, but it's just, that's what's in the inventory. We haven't bought used equipment, but the actual model year may be a year or two out of date. Again, this was the 2021 budget that we started, so the equipment, we'd already started the process of acquiring it in June of 2021.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're ready to vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And it's unanimous. We move to the next item. We note that ordinance number 1 on page 11, tab E, has been eliminated. We go to item number 2, which is a second reading of an ordinance by the county to amend the unified code of the ZLDR. It's at tab F, page 38 on my book, and it's on the screen. Mr. Carpenter, can you introduce this, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of council, previously council has approved on first reading amendment to the ordinances of Kershaw County for the Unified Code of Zoning, which would modify and streamline the process of appeals. Council previously approved this unanimously.
Very good. Can we have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Mr. Jones, a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Tucker. Discussion. Over to you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the county council. Mr. Carpenter, this is a result of my request that I brought before county council to go into the ordinance and streamline, correct? Make it
Yes,
more
sir.
user-friendly for the citizens and to also help staff. Tell me what changes.
Well, essentially what it does, if you look at focuses on the role that the actual building official may play. And part of the discussion was whether the county administrator could have the ability to intervene. And this kind of clarifies the role of the county administrator, which in this case, the county administrator cannot intervene because that would be dual office holding in the state of South Carolina. The county administrator is considered a public office and a building official is considered a public office.
Okay, and that's it?
Yes, sir.
So what have we done to streamline?
We have basically removed confusion from the language that we had so that it's less confusing over who has a role to play in it. It clarifies the fact that the county administrator does not have a role to play.
That wasn't the biggest problem, though. That was actually an issue to look at for a solution, to try to help things out within the planning and zoning. And I realize, too, that when you look at the comprehensive plan, we're mandated by state law, we have to get into that. And I also realize that when you're looking at land use ordinance, that could take up to a couple of years. But, we had talked about trying to figure some other thing. You couldn't come up with anything else, or there wasn't any other suggestions how we can take such a nightmare with our land use ordinance that we have. And it's a nightmare based on conversations I had with folks who really understand that.
What we had checked in to see whether the county administrator could actually play a role in that.
Okay,
We were trying to structure whether the administrator had the ability to do so, and working with the attorneys, we determined that the administrator did not have that.
Okay, and while we're doing that in this form, why couldn't you just present that to us? Why are we doing it this way?
Turn over to the
DeBose.
attorney.
In your last agenda package, there was a red line copy, which had the original, and then it had the changes made, so you could look at it and tell the difference. But we usually only put that in on first reading, what we call the red line copy. And in second reading, we put the clean copy in. So this is the clean copy.
Clean copy is only saying that the county administrator doesn't have authority to intervene.
Well, it makes other changes,
But
too.
that's what I want to know. I want you to explain
We'll
this.
we'll have to get the last agenda package, Mr. Jones, had the red line copy in it and the clean copy, so you could compare them. On second reading, we don't usually put it back in, but we can get a copy to you
Okay.
from the last agenda. It was in the last agenda.
Well, I would just like to see what the changes are that we're voting on tonight.
But we can get the last agenda package at it. Is that not correct, Ms. Siegler? We had at first reading, we give you a red line copy or an underlined copy, which shows the additions and deletions, so you can compare it.
Struck language is
But I think there's some other,
The language
there it
that was
is.
struck is here.
There it is. Thank you.
On the book.
Thank you. There it is, Mr. Jones. The matters we struck out are just what we thought was superfluous. For instance, the appeal to the Building Code Board of Adjustments and Appeals, that board doesn't exist anymore. Hasn't been operated for a long time. the things that were stricken out were things that were superfluous now. And so you can look at that and tell what we took out.
Could you state a few more?
It's a pretty good bit.
Sure, would you just state a few more
Well,
for the record?
if you scroll down, I can read it to you. Building official and zoning board of appeals, I can't really read it.
Site plan and sketch.
That sketch plan, yeah.
would you-
Pre-litigation,
would you-
mediation.
Just on the site plan litigation, would you explain that?
But these things are pretty much superfluous now. For instance, pre-litigation mediation is not used. Planning official or building official would put in because each one is in the definition. You scroll down. The appeal to zoning board of adjustments and appeals was completely removed because that board is inoperative now. You haven't filled it for a long time. And I believe that's it, isn't that, Danny? Or yeah.
Well, let me say, thank you so much, Mr. DeBose, Mr. Carver. Let me tell
I'm
you.
sorry, I just had to get.
No, let me tell you where I'm going with this. I guess, you know, my biggest concern was to give some relief to the citizens of Kershaw County when it came to dealing with 5-ton buckets of bureaucracy. And that's what our land use ordinance was. And I'm just trying to figure out what have we really done to maybe make that better. And I know, and not meaning to call him out, Mr. Brazel's has some issues too. He's received many phone calls. I've received many phone calls. What have we done here tonight that we're voting on that will help us not get more phone calls about the permitting, about the process that folks are going through with planning and zoning?
Well, I think that they intend to or plan to go out to a request for proposal, which will revamp the entire code. And then I believe the comprehensive plan next year is going to be 10 years old, I believe it is. And so next year, which is not far off, you'll have to have a new comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a roadmap. The effectuation of the comprehensive plan is the actual ordinance. So next year, my understanding is it is intended to have revamped the code completely. But this code has been in existence in this form for quite a while.
I voted against it.
I understand that, but the council needs to address the entire code,
Sure.
Mr. Jones.
But-
It's difficult to go in to something that's comprehensive, and it's been amended so many times, you just need to start over.
And I respect that, and I can appreciate that. I just want to make sure we have a clear understanding. Mr. Brazel, do you understand where I'm coming from as far as what you and I have been dealing with citizens in the county?
Well, I think maybe the original intention was to give the administrator the authority to override decisions and to make variances. And I think what I've heard tonight is that has not happened.
Correct. And it was determined that we could not do that way.
Okay.
We tried to, but again, it's a matter of, again, building official is a statutory position by law, as is the administrator. State law prohibits that. So that was the only option we had that we had determined would allow us to come up with the results that you were seeking, which would be a simple process for review that could allow an overturned decision internally.
And that was part of the concern.
And so we determined that was not legally available to us. The appeal process still remains that anyone who has concerns can go to Board of Zoning Appeals and to the County Council for appeals. So they still have the avenues for appeal.
Okay.
Well, I know that I was told in one scenario, in one case, that they would not come before council. It would be the zoning board of appeals or court.
Circuit court.
Yeah.
It would depend on what the actual situation was. And that goes back to Mr. DeBose's case, statement that our code is so, it's been added on and built onto so many times over the years that you end up with conflicting parts of the code where one says one thing, one says another, and they conflict with each other, and it creates confusion. So the ultimate solution really is to fix the code from bottom to top, which is what we started the process of doing.
And we'll have that delivered when, do you think?
The request for proposals is in the process of on the street. So
And it'll
we'll be
probably take
receiving those, and once proposals are received, then they'll be reviewed. They'll be some will be selected to do it, and then it'll probably take 18 months to go through that process because again we're talking the entire rewrite of the entire code. So,
Yeah,
so,
what
so the
I'm-
process first, where we are, which is the RFQ, the request for qualifications, and then
Yeah.
the proposals come in.
What I'm hearing is we're hidebound by our antique code, and secondly, hidebound by the law, which is another thing we can abrogate. And thirdly, we've heard from everybody up here over the years I've been up here, to include the most recent arrival, Russell, saying, can we find some way to expedite? And this is hard. It's a hard problem. If it was easy, it would have already been done. Mr. Jones, go back
Thank
to
you.
you.
If I may continue. It is a hard process to follow, but we've created this nightmare and this monster. We did. I'm just as guilty by not getting involved with it earlier. I guess what you're saying is we're going to close this chapter. Of course, we know what we need to do, and that is to revamp it from A to Z, and we're going to do that, and we're going to stay on top of it.
Yes, sir.
And I think Mr. Temple understands that as well, too. And of course, the comprehensive plan is already being worked on, if I'm not mistaken on that. So I'll be watching that very closely. I expect us to stay on course, not let it drop off to the sideline, and let's get it done. And appreciate it.
Thank you. Other discussion? Mr. Snodgrass, sir.
Sure. Thank you for your work on this. From my view, it helps us remember the role of council, that we are a policy body that sets policy. And if there are things, and we're also a body that appoints boards of appeals, and we can't be upset when the Board of Appeals maybe upholds something that is within the policy or within the ZLER that we placed in. And so for me, this document confirms that we can't politicize any kind of appeal process. And if there's something that we don't like or that we found that was unfortunate for someone, we have to go then back to the policy table and change it there. And so what I'm seeing here is there's no room for us to politicize an appeals process and it be about who you know and what you know to get something done. So I appreciate the work on this and the clarification.
Could I say one thing, please?
Sure, please.
I have no idea where you were going with that, Mr. Snodgrass.
I haven't known in the last 10 minutes where we're going with this.
But bottom line is, we just need to make sure that we revamp it and it gets done in a timely fashion, and that we make it more user-friendly for the citizens as well. And I meant that with no disrespect. I just didn't understand where you were going. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Other discussion? I think we're reaching closure. With that, we move to a vote. All those in favor of this particular reading, kindly raise your hands. And it's unanimous and moves to a third reading. The third item on ordinances is second reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a sewer infrastructure agreement with the City of Camden and other matters relating. It's at tab G, it's on the board, and it's at page 40 in my electronic book. Mr. Carpenter, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, as previously presented to council, this is an agreement between Kershaw County and the City of Camden. It's related to the necessary infrastructure to serve the project of the Prestige Farms project out on Black River Road, the $150 million investment by Prestige Farms, the county's commitment and the city's commitment to provide the necessary sewer infrastructure. It's spelled out what the county is responsible for. Specifically, the county will spend no more than $2.345 million on this project. The funds have been committed. They are not the same funds that was mentioned earlier today that we would use for debt release as funds from economic development. In order to support this project, the city's commitment would be $5.5 million roughly. Council's previously approved this on first reading.
You said that all without taking a single breath. Can we have a motion to approve,
Mr.
please?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we make second reading on the execution of delivery of the sewer infrastructure.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Mr. Brazel, I believe. Yep. And this shows a collaboration between county, the private industry, the city, Cassett Water, and a number of other actors. Jeff Burgess, thanks for piecing this together. This is how hard it is, not just to win business, but then to effect the agreement. Thank you, Jeff. With that, comments, please, starting with you, sir.
I'm just looking for third reading.
Okay, other comments? Russell?
I want to say thanks to Jeff Burgess for all his hard work. This is a huge win for the county, and it's a huge win for all the citizens. Jobs was always a point of concern and a question that I got whenever I was running my campaign. People would ask, well, you didn't mention jobs. Where do you stand on jobs? And I said, hey, I support Kershaw County's economic development policies, and we want to do all we can to create jobs for the citizens and for Kershaw County. So thank you so much.
Other comments? Mr. Jones?
Now, the 2.5 million, where did you say we had that on hand?
Yes, sir, out of economic development funds.
Yeah, we have quite a bit of money on hand when we need it, and of course, I think this is a good thing, but we seem to have a lot of money on hand when we need it. I'm glad, too, that for the facts to be known, I'm glad that Mr. Prestige chose us. Thank you so much.
Okay, other comments? Mr. President chose us, as Mr. Jones said, because we showed an aggressive approach to giving the customer, the industry, what they needed, and we had the industrial site already prepped. So that, his flash to bang, in other words, the time between the investment and the realization of a profit on that investment was reduced, and we were able to, as I said before, get it out of another county here. And that's the way it's done. We have a better product. So I thank you, Jeff. Hope you get some sleep. And we'll talk a little bit more about you at the end of the meeting today. With that, we're ready to move to a vote. All those in favor signify. And it's unanimous, Mary. We move to the third reading. And item number 4 is a reading of an ordinance to approve the conveyance of a parcel of land containing 0.39 acres. It's at tab H, page 77, and it's on the board. Vic, you're going to need to help us again.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, members of council, for many years, Kershaw County leased approximately 0.4 of an acre of land to what was then known as the Cassett Water Company for the purpose of them having a water tower on it. That lease actually expired in 2016. It came to the attention of everybody, and Cassett has requested that the county sell them the land versus leasing. So this is the second reading of an ordinance that would allow us to sell 0.4 of an acre of land to Cassett Water, so they would own the land where their water tower already sits.
All right, very good. Can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Gardner is first, Mr. Tucker second. Discussion, gentlemen.
Mr. Carpenter copied it.
Okay.
Just a necessary process.
All right, other comments?
Can't hear a word he said.
Process.
A necessary process.
Other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I'll just say, just
David?
another example of a great partner that Cassett has been with us. I mean, we just heard about with the Prestige agreement that we had, the prior item just reveals that Cassett is committed to be a partner with us, with the county and economic development. So appreciate it.
Yep, others? I will say this is where zoning works. We've had a lot of discussion about zoning and the problems, but many decades before I returned from the Army back here, zoning made by this body, and I don't know if any of us were here when it happened, put the industrial sites along I-20. So the heavy trucks and traffic and all the other maintenance and things that pertain to running an industry are contained to the proximity to the truck routes on the interstate, and in one case, to a rail site. And that set us up for success many decades later. So I will need to thank people like Ed Royal and Tommy Cooper and all the others who sat in these seats years ago to make it possible for us to have this economic success. And it also reduces the pressure on roads where we live and where we have commercial businesses. So well done, and we are the beneficiaries. With that, we move to a vote. All those in favor signify. And it's unanimous, Mary. Let's move it to the next reading. We move now to new business. We have Recreation Advisory Commission appointments. It's on the screen, and it's on page 84 at tab I. Do we have a motion here for a position? Mr. Jones, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. Steve Zobel contacted me and told me he was resigning from the from the Recreation Department Advisory Committee, and I certainly appreciate all the hard work he's done. He's also a personal friend as well and neighbor. And I would like to make the motion that Alan Judy take that position.
Very good. Thank you. A second?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
On the Recreational Department.
Yeah. A second, please.
Second.
Mr. Connell, discussion. Jimmy?
If I could, thank you. Mr. Judy is a fine member of our community. He has given so much to our youth over the years. He has been involved as a sport official for baseball, softball, basketball, and football. Baseball and softball for 50-plus years. He really cares about our recreation. He cares about our youth. He's also was a state and South Carolina district umpire in chief for more than 20 years, and he has great enthusiasm, and he's willing and ready to get ready to work to help our recreation department move in the right direction. So that is my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I note here that as we go through this process, we don't have to finish all these tonight, Mary, because we are incomplete. But I noticed in talking to Ben Connell, Ben, we don't have anybody from District 3. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr. Chairman. We're working on that.
Yeah. So we have 2 from District 2.
That's okay.
And that's all right. But if we want to represent fully from Elgin District, we ought to get after it. And thank you, Ben, for bringing that to my attention last week. I appreciate it. Let's move to a vote. All those in favor of Mr. Judy signify by raising your hand. And it's unanimous. Thank you, Jimmy. He'll be a great member.
Thank you.
And we'll thank Steve Zobel for a good service. Do we have another nomination?
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Snodgrass.
I'd like to nominate Jack Carrington, or Joseph A. Carrington, to be official, for District 5. He's been in the agenda for two now. And sorry, go ahead.
Can we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a second from Mr. Tucker. David, please.
Yeah, thank you. Jack's a member of the School Improvement Council at Kent Elementary, as well as been coaching football for our rec department, as well as many parts for the county and for the recreation department. And so this is somebody who's involved in the process. So I'm honored to nominate him tonight.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Snodgrass, just so I can stay organized. So it was Mr. Judy replacing Mr. Zobel in that seat, which
He'll be replacing Billy Newman, whose term expired.
Okay.
He termed out as well.
thank you.
That's very good. Other comments? All right, let's move to a vote on this very important committee. All those in favor, so signify. And it's unanimous. Thank you for that nomination. Do we have other nominations?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to nominate Shane Kirkley.
To replace, let's see. Which one is that? Help me out here. District 2, to replace Ken Lawson.
All right. How do you replace someone in my district?
District 2, your District 1.
You got to do one.
Yeah, you're up here.
Oh, I apologize. He's in District 2. I apologize.
Okay.
All right, so we'll forego with that, withdraw that.
Well, I know Shane wanted.
Oh, look here, you can put him in. I just didn't want you to replace Lawson because I know he wants to come back on.
All right.
I just got to get his paperwork straight.
So let's get the motion correct. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. All right, so we would like to make a motion to appoint Shane Kirkley for District 1. Well, he would be replacing Melinda Cashin. She's in
Right.
District 1,
Right.
but he lives in District 2. But he's been here and he spoke to us and he's passionate about what he does. So did we
Just
get that
District
right?
2 has all the good people. Just go ahead and.
There you
come
go.
on.
There you go. There you go.
All right, Mary, you tracking this? Have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Go ahead, sir.
Apologize for the confusion.
No worries.
I think Shane's definitely led conversations to help raise funds for the recreation department. And I know he's very passionate about it, and I think he, every good intention for the children of Kershaw County. So I highly recommend and appreciate his enthusiasm.
Yeah. Other discussion? There is none.
Comment.
Sir?
Ms. Cashin, she's tapped out on her time, hasn't she?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That's what I thought. She has done a remarkable job, and I think I appointed her when she was in my district years ago before the redistricting, so I figured her time probably had ran out. Just want to make that clarification, but good job to her.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And we do appreciate everyone's service on the commission.
Exceptional service, too. Yeah, Sammy?
I just want to make a point so no one gets this twisted or confused. Now, because they're from District 2, don't mean I appoint them all. They're coming out of the representative council seat, but that's who they're choosing. So, like I said, I just have a bunch of good people in my district. So y'all keep getting them.
Come on, Sammy. All right, and protecting Ben's prerogative on District 3, and then I've got to get busy on the at-large position for Jeff Caraway, the current chairman. With that, we move to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Very good. And Mary, you've done great work bringing us to the table here. We've got 2 yet to go, I believe. All right, Mary, if you can have a moment, maybe the next couple of days, and I'll go through this again. Thank you very much. Seeing there are no further nominations, we move on to an appointment of an interim administrator. It's item number 2 in new business and salary. Mr. Tucker, you had a motion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. I'd like to make the motion that we appoint as our interim administrator effective June 15, Mr. Danny Templer, at the salary of $135.
Second?
Second.
Who got a second there, please?
He lives in my
Russell?
district. Can I second it?
Okay, discussion, Mr. Tucker?
I think this is huge for this body to go ahead and get this established so all of our employees understand that we're good and stable, we're headed in the right direction, we're being led by a good man, we can begin the process. We already have begun the process of looking for a new administrator, trying to put the plan together. And just kind of calm the waters. I'm a Navy man, so that makes plenty of sense to me. And allow just us to keep percolating and doing the good work. And especially our employees, they deserve this, so they'll know that they're okay.
Other discussion?
Sure.
Mr. Snodgrass?
Thank you. I'll just say this is a win for Kershaw County, and it displays the legacy of Mr. Carpenter and the leadership and the pipeline that he has built, that he's leaving us with, that we have someone like Danny who is able to step into this day one and will not miss a beat. At least that's my view. I don't speak for all councilmen, but I do know, no offense, Vic, but I feel like I'd call Danny probably more than I call Vic. And that's just kind of understanding that we have. And so just I think this is a good move for us to send a signal to the citizens of the county. While we're in this interim, we are in very, very, very capable hands.
Other comments? Jimmy?
I will have to say that, Mr. Templer, I'm all in with you. And I know you very well. I've known you for many years, but I tell you, I really gotten to appreciate you over the years that you've been working as a deputy administrator. You've always answered my calls many times a day. You've even called me when I haven't called you. You thought I might be in the obituary because I didn't call you. But bottom line is, you're thorough. You get back with us. You protect this county council. You protect the citizens of Kershaw County, and you also make sure the employees are doing what they're supposed to do when it comes to the service of this county. I look forward to working with you through this process, and I think this is a great opportunity for you, and I'm very proud to work along beside you through this. Thank you.
Thank you,
But just
Mr.
keep
Jones.
the citizens happy.
Other comments? To remind, last week we did a call meeting. We set in process, a formal process to identify with professional help a search pattern to bring in alternatives for the position replacing Mr. Carpenter. And I welcome this opportunity to express our trust and confidence in a man that Vic chose, trained, and has, I think, learned as much from as he's learned from Vic. So we've been delighted to be able to support you on this, Mr. Templer, Navy man or not. I will tell you that the process that we set in motion now moves into a serious review, and it'll take several months, and we have no idea when that will come in, but it'll be done by this body, as Mr. Tucker has made very clear, and all of us have agreed that we'll bring in the best of expectations, and we've had 11 great years with Mr. Carpenter. It ain't the same place today than when you arrived, and it's a better place.
Yes.
But the challenges that we face going forward in growth and roads and taxes and schools, those all remain, but they're fundamentally different than we had before in the provision of excellent services. So looking forward, Danny, to working with you on all that, but also an expectation that we are looking for a unique person, and it may not be Vic Part 2. and it may not be Danny Part 2. We'll see where the process takes us.
And
Thank
it may
you
be
for the
Danny Part
advice we
2.
got from the council.
It may be Danny Part.
It may be Danny Part 2, but we'll see.
Well, we'll call him Danny 2.0.
2.0. But at any rate, this is a serious prospect for the person who will be our administrator, and he'll have to operate with a school district and a changed dynamic in the city of Camden and so on. So this begins the process. I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor, so signify. And Danny, we welcome you. It's unanimous, Mary. Thank you
Amen.
very much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, sir. Go Navy.
Go Navy.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a resolution by Kershaw County objecting to the proposed settlement by the state of South Carolina legislature that eliminates Kershaw County representation in the State House. I thank and a map is up on the board that you've all seen. It's been helpfully published in the Chronicle. And I thank Mr. Connell for bringing this forward because we were completely blindsided by this. I'll read the whole thing in its entirety and then we'll take a motion. A resolution, as already stated, whereas a lawsuit was filed in federal court on or about 12 October 21 by certain plaintiffs challenging the redistricting plan approved by the state of South Carolina House of Representatives. Whereas although certain elected leaders of the state were made defendants of the lawsuit, Kershaw County was not named a defendant and therefore did not have any input regarding the plan, nor was Kershaw County able to provide information and opinions as to the new districts enacted by Act 117, including those that provide representation of Kershaw County in the House of Representatives. Whereas Kershaw County is informed the parties in the lawsuit have reached a proposed settlement without any input from the Kershaw County, despite the tremendous and unfair impact the agreement has on the citizens of Kershaw County. Whereas the agreement removes the previously approved representative districts for Kershaw County and instead results in Kershaw County being divided and reapportioned for representation in the legislature by virtue of new, improperly gerrymandered districts, as shown on the chart to my rear. Whereas these new districts result in Kershaw County being divided in unnatural ways and renders Kershaw County's citizens unlikely to be able to vote into office a resident of Kershaw County. And whereas the new districts result in Kershaw County, a county of nearly 70,000 residents with extremely limited voice or influence in the political process at the State House, and could render a county founded in 1791 with near zero representation in its own State House. Whereas this great county was founded on the fundamental rights and assurances of due process and fair, just, and equitable representation, and whereas Kershaw County is firmly committed to equitable representation for all of its citizens, regardless of race, now therefore be it resolved that Kershaw County Council, on behalf of our citizens, hereby objects to the proposed agreement creating the new districts that removes a majority of Kershaw County's voice, input, and access to the political process at the State House. And number two, asks that the agreement be reconsidered and amended with a goal of ensuring that at least one sizable district be drawn as to allow the citizens of Kershaw County the ability to elect the representative of their choice, as in keeping with the founding principles of this great country. Can we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Snodgrass, a second?
Second. I yield.
Mr. Brazel. Discussion, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Sir.
Thank you for the bringing this and putting this on the agenda. I'll be honest with you, folks. I don't really know where to begin with this. As one who's kind of a political nerd and studies maps and other this is just one of the most outrageous maps that I've ever looked at. And what's interesting is the hypocrisy of similar groups that have brought this suit, cried foul on the redraw of the first district of the U.S. first district down in Charleston, on the basis of keeping communities and common interest together in that district. And so now we have a map that has been drawn, and without any consideration to community interest or shared community. And this has nothing to do with the folks that reside in Hopkins, Gadsden, or Eastover. Nothing about those folks at all. But there's no, outside of a little lone 601 highway that gets you down to, partly down to Eastover, there is no shared interest that I see here with this map. The other thing that troubles me is that in the state paper, and I'm not talking out of school, you can read the state paper and you can see the quote and the insinuation that's there by our current representative, and it's like as if just throw his hands up and say, well, this is how the cookie crumbles. And in Kershaw County, I'm sorry, because there's been a dereliction in duty that this was allowed to happen, and that who is going to bear the brunt of this are the citizens of Kershaw County. And I realize, folks, that we're looking at an uphill battle, but I want the citizens of Kershaw County to know that there is a body that fights for them and that will speak for them, and it's this dais up here. And I've just been just set back and appalled ever since this has come out. And we're a community that, we talk about minority, majority groups. And what I know from the census is we are a county that there is no minority, majority. We all live together. When you start drawing these districts, we found that we shared this community, no matter our race, no matter our color, no matter our creed. And I think that there are just people of all creeds and color and races that are going to be, that this map draw is going to be detrimental to. So I would ask that you guys support this.
Thank you. Other comments?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
I think anytime we draw a line, it's a division. And I don't think division is good, but obviously to have equitable representation on a county level, on a state level, it's necessary. What this has done for Kershaw County is completely diluted our ability to have representation at the State House, and it's disturbing as to why, and it's disturbing as to the fact that there were federal lawsuits filed that we weren't aware of, and we had no idea until it was said and done. We'd like to see something that looks more like Kershaw County. Is it 5?
Yes, you'll have 5 House representatives representing Kershaw County.
Right.
So, and
Not 1, 5.
how do you represent your community whenever when your district lines overlap 3 and 4 communities? And it's going to make it very difficult for us moving forward. I was sitting here thinking while Mr. Snodgrass was speaking, my son's choir sang a song, and the song was, "I Have a Voice." And Kershaw County is losing its voice. I couldn't help but to sit here and reflect on that song that I heard this past weekend. Kershaw County is unfortunately certainly losing its voice on a state level due to this map redraw. So if anyone in the State House is listening, if anyone's willing, we would like a say in the matter, and we would like to further the discussion. Thank you.
Other comments? Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and my colleagues. Where to begin? This is a nightmare. Let me begin by saying this right here, and this is something that I told my colleagues. Elections have consequences. Always do know that. Elections have consequences. When you're sitting over at that State House and you don't come to the table to be a part of the menu, you become the menu. And that's what happened to Kershaw County in drawing these lines. This dais up here, we have no say-so or input. What I am thoroughly disappointed especially as an African-American male, is that the lawsuit, these guys might be afraid to mention, it's not mentioned in that resolution.
I'm not afraid to.
It was brought by the ACLU and the NAACP state conference. But yet we had no input onto what these lines look like. No one picked up the phone, and I promise you the NAACP got every number I got and my mama and my daddy number. So there's no excuse that they couldn't reach out. And I've been sitting here for many a years. You know, I might be up at the gold mine digging gold, but I ain't in the hole. So I'm just really disappointed on our state representation, and I'm really disappointed that there was no phone calls and no effort made to reach out to the local folks, the local citizens here, and say, you know, we're planning on doing this. Now, let me make a correction for misunderstanding. You will have representation. It just won't be residents' representation. So you're going to have a House member, some of y'all out of Lancaster County, some of them going to be out of Richland County, some of them going to be out of Sumter County. Your chance of having someone from Kershaw County is pretty close to nil because the numbers don't match. There's no way you can do it. Let me give you another prime example. Ask John Meadows how it feels. He was a Democrat. His opponent was a Democrat. Has Kershaw County elected a residence solicitor yet?
No.
No. Why? Because we're in the Fifth Circuit. Richland County is 8 times big as we are. I mean, the numbers don't match. You will never elect your solicitor as long as I'm living. Now, maybe when I'm gone, y'all redraw some other lines, but it won't happen. And I don't think that's fair to the citizens. I like local people, so if I feel that I need to have a conversation or a lunch or a breakfast, a meal, break bread, that you feel that you can approach them and you're more closer to them because the laws and rules and things they make, they're going to suffer with you because they live in the same county. Yep. What you got now, what I got now, God bless us all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Connell.
it's hard enough to call one person and get them to do one thing. Under this map, we're going to have to call at least 5 people to try to get them to do something.
Yep.
That's the simplest way I can put it as to why this is a terrible result for Kershaw County. You add on to that the smaller portion of the population in each district is drawn to be in Kershaw County, at least presently. We may experience growth and that could change at some point. But this is just a horrible map for us. You have organizations like the CTC, the County Transportation Commission, that are designed to receive state funds and accomplish projects within the county. How does this line up with that? You'll have to call so many different people to try to address issues where this map is inconsistent with the design of programs from the state that come down to the county. I just wish that somebody had fought more for Kershaw County, because now we're, stepping in one of the last rounds of the fight, trying to do something about it, when it, would have been so much easier to make it an issue on the front end, get other people involved, and instead, if you roll over, this is what you get. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That was mildly put, but well put. Sir, Mr. Snodgrass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I can add to that, sorry, I'm fired up about this. So,
You got 2 minutes.
okay, Mr. Connell mentioned the CTC, and a young lady here tonight who was mentioning getting a road paved. How that happens is you go to the CTC. Guess what? Now we're going to be looking at a CTC that's going to be appointed by a delegation of folks who do not live in Kershaw County. And you're going to have to go to before a CTC that's appointed by those folks who probably appoint people that you do not know, people that you do not share the IGA with, who you do not share restaurants with. And this is what we're facing. And what we're seeing here is, it's a change of, it's an end of an era. I'm kind of going to give a little history lesson here. And I'm a Republican, and I'm going to name some Democrats, but I'm about working for the community. I'm not about party at this right at this point. But you're looking at Kershaw County has historically punched above its weight. So we're the county of John Carl West, Don Holland, Bob Shaheen, Speaker of the House, Vincent Shaheen, Lori, all these people who had chairmanships or vice chairmanships or subcommittees. And so now we've gone from that to possibly not even having a resident legislator. And I know everybody just named was a Democrat, but this isn't about party at this point. This is about people who we share the IGA with, who we share church with, that we see every day, that we know are fighting for us at the State House. And this isn't against anybody who would live in another county, because they're good people. but they're not Kershaw County residents. Thank you.
Other comments? Jimmy?
I appreciate all my colleagues' comments on this. Let me just say this, and I'll be very, very brief. I am so disappointed in the ACLU, the NAACP, the governor, the state representatives over the state. You know, Mr. Brooks said it well. He said, we are one people. We are all one community. But what they've done to us is divide us. And it's wrong. And I want to thank you, Mr. Brooks, for your comments up here. That was very well said. We're one people. But you know what they did to us up here? They absolutely screwed us. We have no representation. There's not a district up there that we have a majority in that we can have any legitimate support to try to win that seat. And so I appreciate everybody's concern. I proudly support this resolution, and hopefully we can get some conversation going and get some things reversed down the road.
Other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would
Yes,
just like
sir.
to share
Go
for
ahead.
the city, for the ones that don't know, they're doing a similar resolution tonight. Matter of fact, they should be done. See Martin nodding his head. So we're not in this fight alone, and we're going to fight. And it's, you know, I'm the lonely Democrat sitting up here, have been for some time. I don't look at these guys as Democrats or Republicans. I look at them as men, and can we work and compromise and get things done for the greater good of the people, of the citizens? I've always been that way. That's just my nature. You can take the D off my name or the R off their name. It's all about getting the job done and making sure we do it in the best, efficient, and most quickest way. I will say that, you know, some people think this is a foregone conclusion, but I'm kind of like that guy in the boxing ring. I ain't out till I get knocked out. So we're going to keep fighting. Just make everybody aware of what we're up against and what we're doing, and we're not sitting still, because what really happened was this was the ACLU and NAACP said we don't have enough minority districts. So what we'll do, we'll split Kershaw County out, which is a majority Republican county, and we'll make more Democratic districts. And that's, when you look at the map, that's what it looks like. Well, we're the sacrificial lamb. And I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican when you represent me. I just need you to be good people and do the right thing. That's all I need, a decent, good human being, and work hard and service the people. And that other part of your name, if you care that much about it, good for you, but it really doesn't matter to me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other comments? To reemphasize, this happens in 2024. So those contending for election at the State House for 2022 would proceed. But then at the end of 2024, these seats would evaporate and go to these seats. So the campaign continues. Secondly, this is a clear example of where voters don't choose their representation. Representation chooses their voters. And we got sliced up. Let me give you a short example. You've already heard some pretty good ones. If you want a power of attorney, where do you get it now? Where do you go? You go outside the county. 48 minutes is the minimum travel time in most cases to go find somebody to sign your power of attorney. You used to be able to get it done right here in the capital, in the county seat. You can't do it anymore, effective 2024. So it's just simple things suddenly get real hard. For example, right now, we're trying to work on roads, get more money for roads. I have to go to 5 or 6 representatives, and that's going to even get worse under this particular case, as Mr. Connell said. It impacts us all. So with that, I think we've moaned about it enough. Let me talk about positive action. I would ask the councilman tonight before you leave to sign this document. It becomes an effective political statement and maybe legal. It could be used in any judiciary or litigation that goes forward. We'll need legal advice. We'll need help. We don't know where we're going to get it. I've been asking around, and I've been talking to just about everybody I could about this. I thank Mr. Connell for leading on some of that effort, and we'll see where we go from here. But I need it signed tonight. Secondly, the version that Camden has is a version that me and Mr. DeBose and Mr. Morgan looked at and sent over to Camden, so we all speak with one voice. And we'll get a signed copy of that, Ken, as soon as possible, if you would, please. With that, you ready for a vote, gentlemen? I think, let's go to a vote. All those in favor signify. And it's unanimous, Mary, and let's get that signed tonight. That concludes our business. We go to council briefings, beginning with Mr. Jones, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be very brief. Sheriff, you know I'm a big supporter of law enforcement, and you got a tough job out there, and I realize that. And we're going to do everything we can to help you. Let me just say this, too. I want to talk about public speaking very briefly. I think we need to extend it. I think we need to have some interaction. I think that if someone comes here and they're upset with us, they have a right to be upset with us. I don't like being called a coward. I'm not a coward, but if someone thinks I am, so be it. That's their opinion. But I just think that we need to recognize that and realize that we're in a position that we run. People elect us. They give us the precious gift of their vote. And that they come in here, they're upset, they're frustrated, they're aggravated, they dislike what we do. They should have a right to say it. And I frankly don't care if anybody calls it. It doesn't bother me if someone uses my name. It just doesn't bother me. They've done it in the past, and of course nobody called them down for it. They just finished, Jim Jones, you're this, you're that, you're whatever, so be it. But anyway, I would like for us to really think about that. I plan to sometime in the future to actually bring something to the table to try to extend and be a little bit more realistic with the fact that we listen to the citizens, regardless if they're in our camp or not in our camp. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Snodgrass.
Mr. Chair, members of council, just briefly, just want to highlight the Bailey bill. We had the public hearing. Miles, thank you so much for coming and speaking on that. And thank you to you and your partner and your company and the investment in downtown Camden. If you guys haven't seen that, go by and check that out. And it's just one example of how this bill will help us see more of that, and to reward the ingenuity, to reward the entrepreneurship that is so deserved when people put their neck out and when they invest in our community. Honestly, many times government, it kind of ties things down. It makes things cumbersome. And I see this as an opportunity for us to let loose some of those restraints and give entrepreneurs and businesses the flexibility to do that. And thank you also for your words of advice as far as moving forward. We'll certainly take those into consideration, and looking forward to seeing that come up on third reading. I know there's a few little minor details that we've got to tweak out, but one of the first conversations I had as I was even running to serve here was with the business owners who reminded me about the Bailey bill and reminded me that the county doesn't have it, and it was written for counties to have it. And I'm always not as vocal as some here, or I'm not always as demanding as others. But in the last 4 years, we've been quietly able to push on this, and I appreciate Mr. Cannell and other members who have come alongside in the recent months and years to kind of give the push that we needed and the attention that it needed to get this over the finish line. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple quick things. Miss Grace, Missouri, I think she's still out there. This is for you. We couldn't communicate with you while you were up for public comment, but get with Miss Mary and Mr. Carpenter, the administrator, and they can guide you. Your cries are heard. May not be just quite the right venue, but they can get you where you need to be, and I'm happy to assist in any way that I can to get you where you need to be. And that is a horrible dirt road, because I travel down there quite often. I know exactly where it's at. Don't know where your house is, but a horrible dirt road. But there's a process you have to go through, and we need to get you in that venue. Let me say, because I like to end on a good note, public comments. I absolutely will not support extending them. I absolutely will counter if we get an amendment or a motion to extend public comments. I will make an amendment to do away with them. I am about tired of people politicizing up there in public comments, and it's sad because it's something I've always fought for, because I enjoy hearing people's concerns and their problems and issues. And I thought it was a venue that we could be respectful to one another and utilize that podium for good use. And it's turned into a dog and pony show at times, and that's not selling well with me. Councilman Jones, I'm gonna say this to you because you made the statement about, you've been called things from that podium, and you absolutely have, but where your statement went wrong is I've sat here to defend you. So you said no one's never defend you. That's not true. I've sat here to defend you just like you sat here and defend me. I have been in those shoes, and that's not a comfortable place to be in. And so I will not tolerate anybody picking on any of you guys up here or anyone around in this circle. If you got a problem with a man or woman, address them. Be a man or woman and address them. Don't come up here because you have a public audience and make a show. We don't sell tickets. To the Brook Benton family, I'm in on a good note. Thank you again. God bless you. Continue the good spirits of just being a good human being, a good Christian, a loving citizen. And one day we'll see the fruits of all the good labors that you and others are doing as we continue to make this world and this county a better place. That concludes my report.
Mr. Gardner.
I have no report.
Mr. Brazel.
Absolutely. I'd like to also thank the Bentons for being here, and congratulations for all of your rich family history. Appreciate everybody's input, and the young lady with the problem with the dirt road, I'd be happy to help as well. If that's a state road, typically Mr. Templar, if it's a county road, typically Mr. Templar is able to help. If it's a state road, we can get you pointed in the right direction. I thanked Mr. Burgess earlier for all of his work for economic development, but what I failed to do was thank everybody who put in a lot of work, all of my fellow council members that put in the work prior to my ever being here, because they're the ones who did the heavy lifting and took a lot of criticism to make these projects happen. So to you gentlemen, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And let it be known that I had absolutely nothing to do with it, and they had everything to do with it.
You got us across the finish line.
You got us there. Come on, you made the vote.
That'll end my comments. Thank you.
Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Carpenter, if you didn't already plan on addressing it, I've had a lot of people call asking about updates on the geological survey. I remember there's some talk whenever the earthquake started about some of the equipment being moved by whether the federal or state agencies that were involved with that from Fairfield County to Kershaw. So if you could update us on that, and if there's anything new that we know. I remember there was a slew of 17 to 20 earthquakes that occurred in Fairfield late last year, I think fourth quarter of last year, and then along the same fault line it started hitting us, as we felt as recently as today. So I'd like an update on that. Thank you. Mr. Bancroft, thank you very much for coming and speaking today. It becomes difficult whenever a property's already been reassessed, or if one of the criteria potentially is we need to approve something that occurred behind the walls, just beyond windows, and then the walls already have sheetrock and plastered, and you can't, unless you do destructive testing to find out what's behind there. But if an attorney didn't file something and it prejudices you, it sounds like a potential legal malpractice claim. Not encouraging litigation, but if you've been harmed in that way. But I'd be glad to talk with you later and see if I can get educated on it and learn more about it. Sorry that I missed the meeting this morning, fellas. I had a site inspection for a client. But I'm so excited about the conversation that we've had for over the 4 or 5 years plus, and have figured out a way, it looks like, to move towards cutting the sewer tax. Really encouraged by that. And I hope that we actually are able to get to that point with a balanced budget and cut the sewer tax. I know we've got some studies that have to come back and some final data that has to be returned before we can make that decision and actually vote on it. But that was really encouraging. I was glad to get that debrief. Lastly, I wanted to share that I served on the First Amendment Law Review when I was in law school, and I was the managing editor. And First Amendment has a very wide berth. by definition, generally, sometimes the comments are offensive. You know, whenever you know the First Amendment's typically in action is you're offended but not ready to hit someone, was kind of our line that we had. And typically it's limited by fighting words or shouting fire in a crowded room. Now, fighting words typically incite immediate violence or designed to or intended to create immediate hatred in the person that they're directed to. So, you know, a lot of this is in the eye of the beholder. We do have some parameters to work through, but a lot of it's in the eye of the beholder. And then us up here, fellow councilmen, people aren't able to just say things that are false or untrue. There is still defamation that applies to public figures, but we've all chosen to be in this place at the grace of the voters. And the actual malice standard applies, unless there's a new case, Mr. DuBose, that's come down. I remember the actual malice standard applies, which is a reckless disregard of the truth or knowing falsity of the things that are being said. And so there's a lot of interpretation that goes there. But I believe very heartily in the First Amendment. Between freedom of speech, the petition, your government, freedom of worship, press, and assembly, in my view, it's one of the most important rights and amendments that we have in the Constitution. A lot of the other stuff goes by the wayside if we don't have these fundamental rights. And so I ask that only that it be exercised judiciously and that it be governed judiciously as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you. And I'll close it out. The rules of the House were last written in 1997. The ones I read tonight. I challenged this group the last time we met that if you don't like them, change them. Tell me what you want me to do as your chairman. This is a place of business. This is a people's house. And rules of decorum are to be followed, but they're very specific. And so when those were violated, we moved to the gavel, which is within my duty to perform. And as a soldier, I know what duty is. You change the rules, I'll change my behavior. Now, as a place of business, I would also tell you, I'm siding with Mr. Tucker partially, is that when we get to the end of useful dialogue and get into divisive behavior, it doesn't advance the business of the people of this county. Okay, end of that little lecture. Bailey bill, thank you, Miles. It was pulled because we have a new city manager, and we are definitely working together, okay? And we're waiting for that to come back, and I think we'll have it maybe next time we come together. Let me give you all an update on roads. Y'all asked through the ad hoc committee that we pulled together that we go after our relationship with the CM COG. And we now, I'm happy to report, we got a meeting at DOT that I will attend with the secretary. We've got support partially from the Congress, and we'll have to work that. We may end up going to Washington, and the CM COG itself, which was the source of which was not the source of funds for 23 years, has agreed to help us realign our alignment so that we can have better access to federal funds. So there is some progress. It's a work in progress. On sewer, I agree with Ben. That was really a masterful piece of work. It took us years to get to this point, moving money around, getting things upgraded and so on. But the sewer plant is not failing, and the sewer tax looks like it may be removed during the budget cycle, which I think the first reading is next time we meet. Good news. Back to Prestige Farms, 300 new jobs. That's good news in the last year. And tomorrow we will cut the ribbon with the governor at 9:30 for a walkthrough and at 10:30 for a formal ceremony for 160 new jobs at the GE Hire plant that almost closed. And I'm happy to say I had a role in keeping that open. And tomorrow we'll have the governor there and celebrate 160 jobs. Again, placed at the interstate interchange where it doesn't impact roads back in this area. If you think we have road problems, think of what would happen with all those trucks going through the middle of our residential areas. Thank you on the earthquake, Ben. I was going to mention that as well. I've been in touch with the state geologist, and it's amazing. On Facebook now you watch, all of us are geologists now. In fact, we're all experts in earthquakes, all right? And we're getting even better, shallow, deep, long, words that, that It hadn't occurred to me until this morning at 0133 hours when my wife said, "What the heck was that?" And then it happened again and again. Thank you, Ben, and we do need to have a little more attention to that. I think you're going to address the next meeting of the budget. With that, I have nothing further. Over to you, Vic.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, a few items for you. We had, again, the budget workshop this morning on sewer issues. We will not have a budget workshop next week, but May 24th, we will begin presenting the budget to the council. First reading will be that night as well, title only.
So to be clear, that's a working session that morning.
Working session that morning. And
Don't miss it.
Then first reading that night. A few other issues for council.
But the 17th is no budget
Correct.
workshop.
No
Okay.
budget workshop on the 17th.
Right.
That is correct.
Thank you.
A few other items just to maybe further clarify the discussion earlier about the delegation from Kershaw County. Probably the most significant way it will affect us is that not a single one of our magistrates will be appointed by anybody who lives within Kershaw County. All of our judges will be appointed by people who live in other counties in all likelihood, and that is a significant impact on the citizens of this county where their judges are appointed from. They'll be appointed from Richland County, Lee County, and other counties. I'd also like to point out to you that for the last 6 years, on most days, I've been playing golf and solitaire, and Danny Templer's been running this county. So you have made a very strong and good decision in that, and unfortunately, my secret is out now.
Can we go ahead and just contract you and let Danny keep running the county and save some money?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can play solitaire from anywhere, sir. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
All right, Mr. DeBose.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Can I see Mr. DeBose after this? And,
What about the geological? Any update there?
As
Sorry,
the
Mr.
chairman said, I've not, we reached out to the state geologist. They've not responded back to us, but I'll try to get together something for you.
Mr. Chairman, if I just may, I just want to say, Danny, congratulations and looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Good. All right, I'd like to see Mr. DeBose and Ben, do you have just a minute right after this?
Sure.
Yeah, just based on that discussion we had. So with that, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
A second?
Second.
From Mr. Brazel. Any discussion? All right, y'all have a great day. Hopefully we'll see you down at the higher plant.
Vote. Brazel got a P. Vote.
Well, I'm getting there. Thank you. You got, here, take this. With that, all those in favor signify, and it's unanimous. We're out of here.